The Wollman Skating Rink and how Donald Trump fixed it is a great insight to how he thinks and how he works. And if you applied the same standard of cutting cost and cutting time to, say, infrastructure that he applied to the Wollman Skating Rink, you could build probably $1 trillion of infrastructure for $200 or $300 billion. To set the stage, the Wollman Skating Rink was very popular, about 135,000 people a year. And in 1980 it broke and it couldn't make ice. And for some bizarre reason, the city bureaucracy couldn't get it to make ice, so they spent $13 million and 6 years, and they just couldn't get it done. Trump, whose house and office both look out over the Central Park, got more and more irritated and finally began to publicly harass Mayor Koch about how stupid this was. Koch finally got fed up and said, "All right, smart aleck, I'm going to give you $3 million in 6 months. You fix it." And as Trump puts it in The Art of the Deal, at that point he realized his prestige was at stake, because if he didn't get it done, Koch was going to publicly ridicule him. And he also goes on to say, and this is my favorite line about Donald Trump, "Now that I was in charge, I realized I didn't know anything about fixing a skating rink." Now, I think that's important because Trump is a man who learns as he needs to know. So he said, so now that I was in charge and I know I didn't know anything about fixing skating rinks, I said to myself, who does skating rinks? And he said, Canadians. They looked up and found the #1 skating rink company in Canada, which actually makes virtually all of the National Hockey League skating rinks. They called him, they flew in the next day. They went over and looked at the Wollman Skating Rink, and they came to see Trump, and they said, "This is so stupid, it's embarrassing." And they proposed a very specific solution that was very easy to do, but totally different from the very complex solution the city wanted. And he also says, because I was personally on the line, I wanted to make sure this works. So even though I'd hired the best company in the world, I showed up every day, and I looked at what was going on, and it fit an old rule I'd learned years ago from a banker friend, that you get what you inspect, not what you expect. So here's this vision of Trump, who's wandering around worried about the horticulture, and are the plants being put in right, and how are the pavements, and all these different parts, because he wants it to really look good. Well, they come in about $750,000 in the budget. They take that money, they put that into a trust fund that goes to modernize and take care of the rink and the park around the rink. They charge to use the rink. They more than double the number of people, or they about double the number of people. It goes from, I think, 138,000 to 256,000. And the profit from that goes into the same trust fund. So you have this model of an entrepreneur cutting through all the red tape, going to the best at the business, getting it done quickly, and then sharing with the community all the profits from the achievements. This project doesn't matter to him financially. What mattered to him was there was this eyesore in the middle of Central Park, and it was sad that people wanted to go ice skating. You know, it's sort of the definition of Trumpism being anti-stupid. An ice rink that doesn't make ice is stupid. And so Trump doesn't like things that are stupid, so he stepped in and fixed it. I think it's a great story about Trump, and it's a good example of why entrepreneurs can do things that bureaucracies can't do.